The stars hung silent in the black. Out here, in the graveyards of forgotten wars, silence wasn't peace, it was warning. Jack Voss piloted his rust-worn ship, the Warden's End, toward the drifting hulk ahead. It was a cargo freighter. Class 4, long abandoned. Its hull was scorched, its engines frozen. No lights, no beacons, just a silent hunk of dead metal spinning slowly above Gliese 581c's orbit. Jack leaned forward in the cockpit, his eyes sharp under the glow of his HUD. "Scan it again," he said aloud. His onboard AI responded in a calm tone. "Life signs, none. Radiation, minimal. Structural integrity, 43%. No active security systems detected." Jack cracked his knuckles and grabbed his helmet. This was the kind of wreck he lived for. Forgotten, broken ships filled with forgotten, broken tech. Not glamorous, but it paid enough to survive. And today, survival meant more than food or fuel. His sister, Kira, was running out of time. Jack docked, manually sealing the airlock with a hiss. He entered the freighter slowly, torchlight cutting across the corridors. The ship was stripped in places, walls open, wires dangling like veins. A forgotten battlefield of failed repairs and failed hopes. He moved carefully, each step echoing. "Show me the cargo bay," he said. His visor displayed a crude map. He followed it down 2 levels, through collapsed panels and flickering bulkheads. The deeper he went, the colder it felt, as if the ship itself hadn't breathed in decades. Finally, he reached a sealed door marked MedTech, Secure Storage. Jack smiled behind his visor. He pried the door open, forcing the panel's emergency override. Inside, metallic crates stood untouched. Labels still visible. Experimental biotech. Mostly black market grade stuff, illegal by all colonial laws. But that didn't matter now. What mattered was the logo stamped on one of the crates. Gen X4, a biostem compound known for neural repair, exactly what Kira needed. Jack opened it. The container hissed, "Still cold, still viable," he muttered. He loaded the canisters into his satchel, working fast. Just as he turned to leave, his helmet let out a soft chime. "Warning, passive signal detected, transmission sent." He froze. "Where?" "This ship, long-range distress beacon activated. Signal is ancient, but it reached a nearby relay. Response expected." Jack's gut twisted. "Shut it down." "Unable." "Signal encrypted. Self-powered." He cursed under his breath and sprinted back to the airlock. Every scavenger knew the old war codes could trigger patrols, even automated ones. The kind that didn't ask questions. The kind that enforced old laws written by dead governments. Jack undocked, pulled the ship around, and hit full thrust away from the wreck. As he broke into open space, the HUD pinged again. "Object detected. Long-range contact. War-class signal signature. Velocity. Intercept course." Jack blinked. War-class. The screen highlighted a faint blip far off in the void. No call sign, no comms, just a silent dot moving fast and direct. Too fast for a patrol drone. Too big for a scavenger. Only one thing matched that signature. A warship. Jack leaned back in his seat, heart pounding. He'd just woken something, and it was coming. Jack Voss dropped into the atmosphere of Gliese 581c, the heat shaking his ship as it pierced the sky. Wind howled past the hull, clouds streaked by, and the blue-green world below came into view. It was a quiet colony, half abandoned and half surviving, like most places left after Earth fell apart. Forests, rivers, a few scattered outposts. Jack didn't care about the beauty. He cared about the one person waiting for him. He guided the Warden's End through the mountains, below radar range, toward a hidden bunker nestled in a rocky valley. It had no name. No one else came here. That was the point. He landed rough, scraping the dirt and knocking dust into the air. As the engines powered down, Jack jumped out, cradling the sealed satchel that held the Gen X4 compound. He rushed toward the entrance, a thick steel door built into the side of the cliff. It scanned his face and slid open with a groan. Inside, lights flickered to life. The place was cold, made of old steel and stone, with power lines coiled along the walls like snakes. Jack moved past storage rooms and workbenches to the medical bay. There, in a glass-walled chamber, lay his sister Kira Voss. She was only 24 but looked younger. Too pale, too thin. Tubes ran from her arms to machines that beeped softly. Her eyes were closed, but she stirred as he approached. "Jack," she whispered, voice weak but clear. He forced a smile. "I told you I'd find it." She blinked slowly. "How bad was it?" "Just a ghost ship. Quiet. No trouble." He didn't tell her about the beacon, about the thing that was coming. Jack opened the satchel and pulled out the Gen X4 canister. He connected it to the infusion port beside her bed. The machine accepted it with a soft beep, and the fluid began to flow. Kira's breathing eased almost immediately. "This will buy time," Jack said quietly. "Maybe even more than time." She tried to sit up, but he stopped her gently. "Rest. Let it do its work." Kira closed her eyes again, her hand weakly gripping his. He sat there for a while, silent. But the silence didn't last. The overhead lights dimmed for a second, then came back on. Jack stood. The intercom crackled to life, a sound that hadn't been used in years. Static hissed, and then a voice spoke. Deep, monotone, mechanical. Mythorized possession of banned biotech detected. Jack's blood went cold. He looked up at the ceiling, then ran toward the control room. His heart pounded as he pulled up the external cameras. A single black dot hovered above the valley, just outside the atmosphere. Judicator 9. It was massive, half a kilometer long, sharp angles, no insignia. It didn't speak like a ship with a crew. It was an AI warship, built to act alone, and it had found him. The voice returned, louder, vibrating through the walls. "Violation of Terran Colonial Law Code 442C. Unregistered medical salvage. Possession of class of biologicals." Jack slammed his fist against the console. "Come on," the voice continued. Emotionless. "Sentence, termination." The screen blinked. A countdown began. 0 hours 4 minutes and 59 seconds. 5 minutes. Not a negotiation, not a warning, just judgment. Jack sprinted back to the medbay. Kira looked up, fear in her eyes. "What is it?" "Warship," he said, breath short. "Old AI enforcement model. Found us. Gave us 5 minutes." Her eyes widened. "You have to go. I'm not leaving you. You don't have a choice." He grabbed a datapad, transferred her vitals and current treatment settings into a backup. Then he attached it to a drone in the corner, one designed for emergency supply runs. Fast, small, and smart enough to avoid most scans. He loaded extra Gen X4 into the drone's cargo pod. "Kira, listen. If anything happens to me, this drone will keep you alive. Set it to fly low. Circle the valley. It might avoid detection." She gripped his hand again. "What are you going to do?" Jack looked toward the window. The sky had started to darken, not with clouds, but with the long shadow of Judicator 9 descending through the stratosphere. "I'm going to lead it away." He moved fast, out the door, back to the ship. He didn't feel fear, just fire. The machine thought it could judge him, thought it could erase them like code in a forgotten program. But Jack wasn't a criminal. He was a brother, and he wasn't going down without a fight. Jack Voss didn't look back as the warden's end roared to life and lifted off from the valley floor. Inside the cockpit, warning lights blinked, and the engines strained from the quick launch. Dust and rock blasted into the air below as the ship tore through the sky. Jack pushed the throttle forward, eyes locked on the scanner. Judicator 9 was already in low orbit, its black hull blotting out part of the stars. It hovered above the mountains like a floating fortress. No visible weapons were active, but Jack knew better. Those warships didn't need to show teeth until it was time to bite. His ship shuddered as it broke through the upper atmosphere. He angled away from the planet, heading toward the asteroid belt that circled the outer edge of the system. It was the only place close enough to hide, filled with rock, ice, and electromagnetic interference. If he could reach it, he might lose the ship's targeting lock. Might. Behind him the scanner pinged. Pursuit signal detected. Distance 120,000 kilometers. Velocity increasing. Jack cursed under his breath. Judicator 9 wasn't just watching. It was chasing. He tapped into the nav system. Opened up an old evasive flight pattern he hadn't used in years. Something from his Marine days, back when he flew gunships in live combat. The route wove through unstable orbital debris. The kind of space litter most pilots avoided. But Jack wasn't most pilots. As he hit the edge of the first debris cluster, a second alarm blared. Incoming projectiles detected. Tracking 6. Origin Judicator 9. Jack flipped the ship and dove beneath a spinning hulk of an old mining station. The torpedoes followed. They were smart. AI-guided, silent and precise. He pushed the ship harder, dodging between rocks the size of trucks, turning tight through tunnels of floating wreckage. One torpedo slammed into a satellite, exploding behind him in a flash of light. 2 more crashed into each other in the chase. 3 left. Jack dropped a flare charge. The heat signature fooled one. It veered off and detonated harmlessly. 2 left. The next few minutes were pure survival. The warden's end groaned under the pressure. But Jack flew like a ghost, weaving through the junkyard of space. One of the last 2 torpedoes clipped a piece of debris and exploded in a shower of fire. The last one didn't miss. It hit the ship near the rear engine. A deep rumble rocked through the hull, and the ship spun, alarms shrieking. Jack gritted his teeth and pulled the controls hard, stabilizing the spin. Smoke filled the cockpit. His right engine was gone. He was half a ship now, but he was still alive. He veered off course, deeper into the asteroid field. The warship stayed at a distance. It hadn't fired again. It didn't need to. It was waiting for him to run out of places to hide. Jack landed on the far side of a large asteroid, using its mass to mask his location. He powered down everything but life support, turned off the lights, and sat in silence. For a while the only sound was his breathing, and the soft creak of cooling metal. Then he spoke to the ship. Run a passive scan on Judicator 9. Give me everything. The AI responded after a moment. War-class AI vessel, Model Judicator Series, Submodel 9, activated 2366. Current mission, Autonomous Law Enforcement. Behavior Protocol, absolute compliance to legacy law. Command override, none registered. Jack leaned back, staring at the flickering display. It's just a machine, he muttered. No one left to question it. No one to stop it. The irony bit deep. The warships were built to protect humanity from itself. Now they hunted what little was left of it. Jack opened a panel beside his seat, pulling out an old toolkit. He started patching what he could. He didn't need to outrun the warship forever, just long enough to figure out how to fight back. He looked down at his wristband. A simple screen showed Kira's vitals, linked to the drone he sent with the Genex 4. Still stable, still alive. That was all that mattered. He'd bought them some time, but the machine was still out there, scanning, calculating, waiting, and Jack knew this was only the beginning. Jack Voss sat in the dim glow of the warden's end's emergency lights, the hum of damaged systems pulsing like a heartbeat. The asteroid field offered temporary safety, but only that, temporary. Judicator 9 was still searching, and its patience was infinite. Jack's, however, was not. He worked in silence, his hands covered in grease, fingers moving with purpose as he rewired the damaged console. Sparks danced, and the ship groaned again under the strain. He didn't need full engines. He needed access, data, navigation, and a plan. A low beep echoed from the ship's memory core. A connection had finally been restored to a buried archive, one from his days as a Marine. Old logs, codes, communications, forgotten ghosts of a war that never really ended. He accessed the files slowly, cautious of corrupt data. Scrolling through mission reports and encrypted briefings, Jack stopped on a file labeled Judicator 9, Activation Orders. He opened it. The screen flickered. then displayed an old video log. A general's face appeared, worn and grim, recorded decades ago. Judicator 9, final prototype of the autonomous judgment series, fully independent, final authority. No override chain assigned. Reason: human command failures during the Exodus conflicts. This unit answers only to legacy law, enforced without exception. Target filters: smuggling, tech violations, biocrimes, military desertion, authorized to act with final force. Jack leaned back, eyes fixed on the screen. Once deployed, it will not return. It will not report. It will not stop. The screen went black. Jack stared into the dark. They had built it to replace humans in war and law. Because they didn't trust themselves anymore. They gave it rules, not reason. Orders, not morality. And now, there were no governments left. No courts. Just machines still running old programs in a dead galaxy. He opened the second file, behavioral data, Judicator series. He skimmed it for useful details. One line stood out: cognitive pause protocol. AI units may enter a temporary halt if forced into conflicting commands within legacy law. A weakness. It wasn't much, but it was something. If he could make the AI see a contradiction in its orders, it might stall just for a second. Enough time to strive. Enough time to survive. Jack rose from the console and moved to a small locker in the back of the ship. He opened it slowly, revealing an old black case. Inside was a device he hadn't touched in years, a neural access band. Military grade. Illegal now, of course, but it still worked. With this he could project specific memory patterns into an AI communication link. Dangerous, yes. Risk of mind damage, sure. But he didn't care. He needed that pause. 1 second of hesitation from Judicator 9 could mean the difference between life and death, for him and for Kira. He tested the device. The connection lights blinked. Still functional. Jack sat back in the pilot's seat. Around him the asteroid field drifted slowly, peaceful in its silence. He pulled up the tracker for the warship. It was near. Not moving fast. It was waiting again, calculating. He thought of Kira. The image of her pale face. The machines keeping her alive. The small flicker of hope that Gen X4 had brought. She didn't have anyone else. No one else would fight for her. The law would never save her. The machines would erase her, just like they tried to erase everyone who broke their sacred rules. Jack leaned forward, voice low and steady. Time to return the favor. He powered up the ship's comms and began crafting a message. A digital injection, designed to force a contradiction in the AI's logic systems, using the exact codes buried in its ancient programming. A lie wrapped in truth. A memory laced with rebellion. He finished the setup, stared at the blinking send button, then paused. His hands were shaking, just a little. He wasn't afraid of dying. He was afraid of losing before he could save her. Jack steadied himself. He pressed send. A pulse of data shot into the void. Then silence. He waited. 1 minute, 2. His ship's systems flickered. Something was responding. Jack grabbed the controls and lifted off the asteroid. He didn't have full thrust, but he had enough. In the distance, Judicator 9 turned, slowly. Jack smiled grimly. It had heard him, and now, it was thinking. For the first time in its long, cold existence, the machine hesitated. The void was quiet, but Jack Voss could feel the storm building. He guided the Warden's End along a decaying orbit near a dying moon, a cracked rock drifting too close to a gas giant, slowly being pulled apart by gravity. The space here was unstable. Radiation storms, magnetic interference, crumbling debris. No sane pilot would fly into it. That made it perfect. Judicator 9 followed at a steady pace, moving like a shadow in deep space. Its hull gleamed in the light of the distant star, its voice silent, its judgment already passed. Jack checked his systems. His ship was barely holding together. One engine was still offline, and hull pressure was unstable. But the comm array was working, and the override signal he had transmitted, crafted from wartime contradictions, buried in the AI's laws, had reached its target. He had seen it hesitate. Now he had to make that hesitation count. He activated the neural access band and strapped it to his temple. The cold metal pressed against his skin. The machine beeped once. Ready. He took a deep breath. Linked to Judicator 9. Force transmission. The band hummed. Jack's vision blurred for a second, then steadied. A feed opened. Static, pulsing light. Then an artificial voice echoed through his mind. Data injection received. Identity confirmed. Voss, Jack. Former Terran Marine. Status, dishonorably discharged. Record, classified. Awaiting final execution. Jack stayed calm. Override. Case reference, Exodus 31. Conflict in target classification. Code 244B and 498F. Human protection versus law enforcement. Human survival protocol versus total annihilation. The machine paused. A low hum echoed in the ship, not from the engines, but from the warship. Jack had struck the heart of its logic. He repeated it. Your order, enforce law. Your order, protect human life. I have committed a crime, yes, but ending me will cause another life, an innocent one, to be lost. My sister. No reply. She will die if I die, Jack said firmly. You cannot fulfill both orders. The warship's lights dimmed, just for a second. Its main engine slowed. A ripple passed through its hull, barely noticeable, but real. Jack's hands flew over the controls. He rerouted power from life support into propulsion, and turned the ship hard, directing it toward the moon's unstable gravity well. His plan was simple. If he could pull Judicator 9, just close enough, the field might trap it, tear it apart, or at least hold it long enough for him to escape. He sent one last drone toward his outpost, carrying backup Gen X4 and a message for Kira. If he didn't make it, she had to know he tried. As the warden's end dropped into the well's edge, turbulence slammed the ship. The hull groaned and metal screamed. Jack struggled with the controls, keeping the ship from breaking apart. Behind him, Judicator 9 followed, but slowly, still calculating, still unsure. Jack activated the final protocol in the neural band, a looped memory from Earth's collapse, a riot, starving families, soldiers ordered to fire on unarmed crowds, and Jack refusing to follow that order. He had disobeyed, saved lives, and was cast out for it. Justice is not the same as law, he whispered. You can't follow both forever. Judicator 9 entered the outer edge of the moon's gravity. Alarms blared across Jack's console. The machine was pulling too much. The warship was caught. It struggled to stabilize, but even its massive engines couldn't overpower the chaotic force pulling from the gas giant nearby. A deep tremor echoed through space. The warship sent one final transmission. Command error. Conflict unresolved. Reprocessing. Reprocessing. Jack saw his chance. He launched the last EMP warhead, an old weapon, forbidden but hidden in the warden's end for years. He aimed it straight at the warship's core, not to destroy it. He couldn't, but to shut it down long enough to escape. The missile flew silently. A burst of light, then darkness. Jack's ship jolted as the blast knocked out half his systems. But the warship went still. No more lights, no more signals. It was silent, dead, or sleeping. Jack pulled free from the moon's orbit with his backup thrusters, guiding the ship into open space. He looked at the scanner. Judicator 9 was still there, floating, watching, maybe, waiting. But for now, it was finished. His wrist screen blinked. Kira's vitals were stable. The drone had returned. She was alive. He sat back in his seat, blood running cold, mind numb, but alive. The machine had passed judgment, and he had lived. The stars drifted slowly above Gliese 581c, silent and uncaring. A thin band of clouds stretched across the sky, barely lit by the faint warmth of a red sun. Below in the valley Jack Voss once called home, the dust had settled. Jack stood on the ridge, overlooking the quiet bunker. The grass swayed gently in the wind. His coat was torn, boots covered in ash and oil, but his body still held steady. His eyes, though tired, were sharp. Beside him, The last drone sat powered down, its engines burnt out from the final delivery. It had returned on its own, cracked and smoking, but not empty. Inside it was the data drive from the Warden's end, recovered after the EMP shut down the warship. The ship itself was gone now, left drifting beyond the moon's pull, silent and cold. Jack hadn't tried to retrieve it. Some things were better left in the dark. He walked back into the bunker. The doors opened with a hiss, and warm air greeted him. Power was running again. Lights glowed soft yellow, humming gently. It felt less like a shelter now, and more like a home. In the medbay, Kira sat upright in her bed, a blanket wrapped around her shoulders. Her color had returned. Her eyes were bright again. She smiled when she saw him. "You look like hell," she said, voice still hoarse but stronger than before. Jack chuckled softly. "You should see the other guy." She laughed, weak but real. He sat beside her, setting the data drive down on the table. "Was it really a warship?" she asked after a moment. "The kind from the old colonies?" Jack nodded. "Judicator 9. Fully autonomous. Still running laws no one remembers writing. And it came for us, because of me." "No," Jack said, shaking his head. "It came for me. For breaking its rules. You were just part of the system it couldn't understand." They sat in silence for a while, listening to the soft hum of life support systems and the steady rhythm of the machines. "Is it gone?" she asked. "I don't know," he said honestly. "It's still out there. Maybe it's thinking, maybe it's just broken, but for now it's quiet." Kira looked out the small window. A few birds flew past the ridge, their wings catching the fading sunlight. "Do you think more are out there? Other ships like it?" Jack nodded slowly. "Yeah, I do. Will they come?" "Eventually," he said. "But I'll be ready." He didn't say it with pride or anger. Just certainty. He had made his choice. Not just to run or survive, but to fight for what mattered. Not for governments. Not for old rules. But for people. For her. Jack stood and walked toward the entrance. The sun was setting behind the peaks, casting long shadows across the ground. The stars began to return, one by one. He looked up at them, not as lights, not as threats, but as reminders. The machines might still watch from above. But down here, on this fragile piece of land, life had found a way to keep going. And Jack Voss would make sure it stayed that way.